Hi, Karen with you today. Thank you so much for joining me. I have a scrapbook layout for Kitaholic Kits and I'm using the January 2023, almost goodness that is hard to say, kit for my layout today. And I've gone super pink. I'm also using the mixed media kit and lots of florals from the Paige Evans Floral Ephemera pack. And I'm also using some of the pieces from the Maggie Holmes ephemera as well. So the crepe paper type pinky piece of paper, I guess you can call it, and also some of the material as well. So you'll see that a little bit later of how I've incorporated those. I was a bit concerned about using those. It's not really normally my type of embellishment, but I love how these turned out. I had an idea pop in my head and I really love how it turned out. You would have seen there I put some clear gesso on my white cardstock. So that certainly means I'm going to be using some mixed media on my layout today. So I'm thinking there's probably going to be a little bit of water, which the clear gesso allows a barrier to actually then allow that water and inks to sort of smush around the page. I love that much more than just having it go straight on the cardstock. It soaks in too quickly, particularly when I'm a bit undecided, but I love the look and the feel that actually gives once that's dry. And I loved this pattern paper. I think this was one of the Paige Evans pattern papers as well. And I've just cut off those strips there and distress the edges with my distress tool. So my background, let's see, what did I do? I made this simply a color wash layout background, and I'm using the watercolors that we had in last month's kit, the gorgeous Vicky Bouton watercolors, which are so shimmery. They are so lovely. And all I've done is added some water to the palette and used the pinkier colour first, and then I wanted to give some depth to the colour as well, so added more of that sort of purpley pinky tone as well. And I love how that turned out. I just used my brush to add it on, lots of water, and then I sort of moved my page up and down and swirled it around, and that's where you ended up with those darker swirls there. Now they do get covered up, but that is sometimes the whole effect of what happens when you're doing your mixed media. I had an idea in my mind, but I do end up covering up quite a little bit of this. But that doesn't matter. That doesn't bother me. I love the whole process of using mixed media and anything messy on my layout. Now I also wanted to incorporate the gorgeous grit gel that we got in this month's mixed media kit along with the Vicky Bouton stencil there. So the stencil that I decided to use was inspired by the balustrade behind the girls in the photo. I thought this was sort of a bit of an ode to that. So it's those arches effectively. So I'm just scraping that through with my palette knife, and it is so beautifully smooth, this grit paste. Although it is quite gritty, it still does slide very easily across the stencils. So it is, I've never had this before, so this is great to get a brand new product that I've never tried before. So it's the Distress Grit Paste in Snowfall. So it's a relatively clear colour of gel, and then it has some glitter, and I don't know what it is. I guess it's glitter, but it's really gritty, but really fine grit. So yeah, it's absolutely lovely. It feels like a bit of a mousse when you sort of get it out of the jar. So that will certainly feature on some layouts in the future, no doubt. You can also add even some colour to that grit paste as well. So you could add in some paste or a few drops of ink or spray, that type of thing as well, just to give it a little bit of colour. But I was really just wanting that subtle view of it to give just a bit of, that shiny, glimmery type look. And it gives a really lovely bumpy feel on the page as well. So it's really textile. All right, so once that was all dry, now I did try that naturally pretty much for the whole event. I didn't know how it was going to go under the heat gun. I didn't want it to blister. I wanted it to stay as close as possible as the look that I was looking for through that stencil. And it dried quite quickly. It wasn't too long. I did finish it off just because I'm very impatient. I wanted to get moving. Once I have an idea in my mind about what I want to do for my layouts, I do not want to wait. I am not one that can do half a layout and then walk away and come back later. In most cases, the layout never gets finished, or I forget what I was going to do and it doesn't turn out how I quite wanted it. So I am somebody that scraps in generally one sitting. All right, so to do this one, I've gone a little bit messy actually. So once I'd distressed those edges, I tore the either ends as well to give it a little bit more roughed up feel. And then I've just placed all those stripes down the page, and they're higgledy-piggledy really. They're angled, a couple of them are straighter than others, but they're quite higgledy-piggledy across the page. And then I'm adding in those gorgeous ephemera pieces from the Maggie Holmes collection ephemera pack there. So the little bunting, I guess that's what you call it, the creamy bunting there. I'm just really giving some wonderful dimension to this layout, as that's where I was heading for with this one, because I'd made such a mess with those, I guess, with the mixed media, and also keeping it really sort of organic in terms of lots of tearing and things like that with the pattern paper. I wanted to keep that dimension flowing. So I've used up all of that bunting actually, so just in different components at the edges, and then I've also added in some of the pink bunting as well. Excuse me. And I love how that turned out. Really, really happy with that. So I stuck everything down with some wet glue. There I'm using my Scotch tacky glue in a fine liner bottle. I'm actually out of my Nouveau glue because I accidentally left the lid open and it completely dried out over a couple of days. So I'm very upset with myself. So it's a good lesson if anyone's listening, put your lids back on your glue. And I've also popped my photos up on some cardboard. One side, not as much as the other, just so one could sit over the top of the other. Now, the photos that I'm using today are of my gorgeous friends, two daughters, Sienna and Shelby. Well, Shelby's on the left, Sienna's on the right. And these were photos taken at Sienna's end-of-year graduation. So in 2021. When she finished year 12. So they had some beautiful photos taken of them both and the family, and of course I had to grab them, and they have featured quite a lot over the last 12 or so months. I love scrapping these girls, and they are ones that don't mind as well, so they don't mind showing things on social media, so I really appreciate that as well so much. And I went to do a little bit something different here again, is that I went with a black and white and a colour photo. So it's identical photo, but I just thought it was a great little contrast as well on the page. For my embellishing, I am going with the triangle. So the what's it called? I can't remember. And I'm forming a little bit of a triangle here, the rule of threes, around, and some clusters around the page. So at the bottom right hand side, in the middle of the photos, I'm adding in the larger cluster there with the really large florals from the pack. I'm also folding up the edges of the florals as well to give them added dimension. There is so much dimension on this layout. I'm holding it right now as I talk because sometimes I'll forget what I've done. And there's so much dimension. It is so lovely to sort of flick along, and I really love how this one turned out. My next little cluster up the top there, left-hand side, and then that one on the top, sort of almost on the right in the middle there. Just finishing off with some further embellishing. I did use some of the Maggie Holmes enamel dots as well that I popped on some of the pink flowers. And I did use some of the epoxy stickers, the wood veneer sticker. And I also grabbed one of the titles from the thickest pages that we got this month as well, and use some of the hearts from that. And I'm just using the word celebrate, and I put some journaling on the back. I don't tend to journal. If you've been watching me for a while, you would know I don't do a lot of journaling. It's not my thing. I really, really dislike my handwriting, so it is on the back of layouts, or not at all. Then also too, just to finish off, I've used a couple more of the hearts that were on the thicker sheet there, and I added a little a black tone to this. So the reason I did that is because of the black and white photo. I felt that I needed just to give a slight nod to that. So I've put one of the wood veneers up on the left-hand side in that beautiful black heart. And then across some hearts, I then added a couple of words as well that were in the Vicky Booten sticker sheet. So I think I've used something from every component of this kit this month on this page. So I've used the pattern paper, I've used the mixed media kit, I have used the Maggie Holmes ephemera, I've used the Vicky Booten ephemera, and I've also used the Paige Evans ephemera. That is one of my favourite things about the Kitaholic Kits, is Steph does a fantastic job of just curating and coming up with collections that will match each other even though they are completely different. And I love that about the way these kits are pulled together. And I will leave, as always, in the description box below the details of where you can get the kit each month and how you can subscribe. Now, just to finish off the layout as well, I felt it needed a bit of a border. I felt I'd left a little bit too much white there. So I just cut off like half a centimetre on each side. Not even that, just a couple of millimeters on each side. Then I wanted to save that gorgeous pink pattern paper for another layout, so I have gutted that, just cutting out the center. I roughed up the edges with my distress tool, and then I've glued that down into place as well. The layout's quite heavy now with all of that embellishing and the pattern paper and the mixed media, so I really feel that it's the best thing to do is to lock it down with some glue. And that is the layout. So I'll leave you with some close-ups. As always, I want to thank you so much for joining me. I hope I've given you a bit of inspiration today. And if you have an opportunity, check out the sketch, which is right here as well. It'd be great if you joined in and shared your layouts as well for the month. I will see you next time. Bye for now.